Welcome to the SBC Year 10 English Reading Comparing Podcasts. I'm Matt Hurley, Director of Additional Needs at St Bernard's, and I will be the host in a series of podcasts where staff members have professional but casual conversations on aspects of this unit of study. I hope you find them useful addition to your working class. So now, on the episode. Characterization, character identity and development is a crucial component in any literature that we study at school. So with me to discuss characterization in general and the characters of our two texts, To Kill a Mockingbird and A Man for All Seasons, Mr. Stuart Crawford and Mr. Brendan Tollett, both VCE English teachers extraordinaire. Gentlemen, I'll start with you, Stuart. What is it that you're looking to do in analysis of a character in any text that you're taking to a class?
I think students, when it comes to character analysis, really just focus on what characters say. They're looking for that golden quote, they rip through the book and trying to find out what reveals a trait or a view or a value or something like that. When character analysis is really much more than that. It's about characters' actions, what they do. It's about characters' reactions, how they react to things that happen around them, how they perhaps modify their behaviour for different characters, different situations. And that gives us a bigger insight into who they are and what they actually believe. So I think actions and events are also really, really important.
Yeah, okay. Do you ever find it worthwhile branching out from the main characters in a text? Do you find that there's a lot of use in looking at the bit parts, maybe a character in a chapter here or a chapter there?
Absolutely. I think that really, when we talk about literature, let's face it, we're talking about VCE literature, talking about what everyone else is doing, and everyone's going to know the main characters really well. They're going to spend all their time, and as me marking essays, I constantly see the main characters bang, bang, bang. But when someone actually considers a minor character, all of a sudden it's a refreshing look at the other characters, and often the minor character will be perhaps someone who embodies a certain value that one of the other characters has, or it might be a parallel. So there might be a smaller minor relationship which kind of represents the bigger one that's going on in the main text, and that can be a great gateway to talk about the main characters by talking about the minor ones. They're called minor characters because they're not in a bunch, but you need to think that an author constructs a text. They don't just go, I'm just going to have this character say one or two things and that's going to be it. But each character has its part in the piece, and often these minor characters are overlooked.
I guess what we're getting at here is a sense of it's worth time and energy students investing in the little characters, the ones that don't have that much volume in the text, because they're just as valuable to the exercises that they're doing as the big ones that you can point out. Okay. Brendan, can you give me some sort of breakdown as to, if we had to take characters as a broad category and sort of start to put them into smaller groups, how would you split up the whole idea of a character in a text? What's their part, so to speak?
So every character has a purpose. Very rarely is a character written, especially in a VCE text, without a purpose. And what Stuart was saying earlier about where the character goes, I look at a character and look at growth. So what does that character how does that character progress through that text? How do other characters change that character? Where has the author situated each character and what purpose does that character have? We're talking about minor characters, and without Boo Radley, there'd be no Atticus Finch. Without the common man, you wouldn't have Thomas More. These characters complement maybe, I don't want to say a greater ideal, but more important character structure. So they are supported character, and as Stuart said, minor characters are only minor because they're not actually in it for a fair bit, but they're there to support the main themes generally the main characters have. Henry VIII imbues this fantastic sense of pompousness and arrogance and structure and order, yet we're positioned to side with Thomas More because of the way that it has been written. And I think from a dramatic perspective, and I know Stuart wants to add to this, you've got the playwright or the author or the poet structures his characters in a way that there shouldn't be much hierarchy in a text. There's some sort of synchronization that should happen between the characters in a text.
Okay, sure. I just want to pick up something Brent said, which I think is really important, is the character's journey. And going back to what I said before about trying to work out how the minor characters kind of maybe connect with major characters, often it's because of the journey which they take. They've been through a similar journey, or they're going through a similar journey. So I think one of the best things you can do is, grab a character from the novel and say, what happens to this character?
Mm-hmm.
What are they like at the beginning of the novel? What are they like at the end of the novel? And what changed them? Or what didn't change them? What are the major moments? And once you sort of draw the timeline for each character, you can kind of look at something and go, wow, they're actually quite similar. They go through a similar thing, but they have a different outcome.
So with development, it would be fair to say that a bit of a clue as to just how much time and effort the author has put into their character is if we get some backstory, if they invest some time in telling us about their character up to the point where we meet them.
Absolutely.
Because certainly in Till Mockingbird we get a lot of that, don't we? We hear all about Boo Radley. We don't meet until the end of the book. We hear all about him, and there's little moments where he's got some sort of invisible impact on.
But you have that sort of lifeblood moment where you go, aha! That's why he is the way he is. I understand it now only through that backstory. And that justifies who he is. And that's what we're constantly looking for, I think, is the characters, is why are they who they are? Why do they act the way they do? Why are they able to change when other characters remain constant? It's really getting into their brains. And you know, it sounds a bit year 7-ish, but making that character map. For start, you'll never do it in a senior class. You never say, okay, why is a big circle on the board? But it's something that you can go away into. And those skills you learn as a junior can be really handy to work out.
It gives you a surety about what you're going to write down the track. You've done your sort of background.
And all my best year 12 students, they'll have like a little book of notes that they've done by themselves, and they've kind of added this out separately to the class, and that makes a big difference.
So we've got an eager listening audience, mostly Year 10 students. So I'm going to guess that a lot of the students think, well, this is fantastic, but I'm used to thinking of characters as either good guys or bad guys. So what can we say to these students? I mean, because that's legitimate. We live in an era where superheroes are the characters of the day. So there's got to be more to the good guy or bad guy. I think how do we help them?
I think you've got to stop categorizing a hero or a villain, and that's very, very hard, as you said, in the kind of social climate that we live in. We are very quick to talk about the antagonist versus the protagonist. Protagonist is in almost any class, and they say the hero. When it's not the case.
No.
You know, we're talking about the central character.
Right.
Same goes with antagonists. Look at Oliver Cromwell. He experiences growth. He is malicious, and he is conniving, and he's extremely smart, and you know he would be the villain of the piece. But we could not. I don't think we can start distinguishing him as the bad guy. He's got his own motives. He's out for himself. You know, in many ways, he is the parallel to Thomas More in Man for All Seasons. They're both ambitious, but nobody talks about Thomas More being ambitious. And Thomas More is fighting for the cause of the Catholic Church, which is wholly ambitious. But, you know, in the same way, you've got to look at it, you know, how is he different from Oliver Cromwell? Well, Oliver Cromwell's serving his own pockets, albeit lining his own pockets, sure. But that's a very good point. Who's the hero and the villain? Do we need one? You know?
Look, I think for a character to be believable, you can't be good or bad. You have to be grey in the middle. You can't be black and white grey. And that makes a character really interesting because ultimately literature is about the human experience, and no one, I think, can look anyone in the eye and say they're wholly good or wholly evil.
Right.
It's not realistic. We are all capable of bad things.
Speaking of the realistic, though, one of the things that these two texts have in common, both To Kill a Mockingbird and Man for All Seasons, is that all of the characters are based on real-life people. Now, I don't think anyone for a second thinks that they are an accurate reflection of the real-life person in the purest sense. But nevertheless, they weren't sort of invented out of thin air. So what can we say about that? Because if students were to investigate some of those characters in Man for All Seasons and to look into the real men and women of that play, they'd be a bit surprised that they have background and they have prior form that doesn't come out in the play.
Absolutely.
And there's just been we've just got the sort of the precursors To Kill a Mockingbird come out recently, and a lot of people were shocked that Agnes Finch comes out of that book, maybe not as shiny and superhuman as we all thought he was in this book. So
I think when we're looking at characters, be it from, you know, a text like Man for All Seasons or Mockingbird, we need to really think about and be careful about when these texts were written and what was the social experience at that time as well. You know, it's they're two completely different texts, and I agree with you. They're both based on some sort of fiction, but you know, you need to be careful about finding the mood of where these pieces were written or when these pieces were written.
Sure.
I think when it comes to these two texts, one of the most important things is looking at the two, Sir Thomas More and Atticus Finch. They have a similarity, and that similarity is they seem to be almost wholly good.
Yes.
And I think that if we do look at them outside of these texts, then we find that they're like,
they come across as perfect in the text. Yeah, idolize them in the text.
But the thing is, why is the writer doing that?
Yeah.
Why is the writer making them perfect? Why do we need them to be perfect within the text? And I think we look at any character in any text that's seemingly perfect.
Yeah.
That character is there to challenge our viewpoint, our societal viewpoint.
Right.
And whether that's real or not, it doesn't really matter, because Sir Thomas More causes an idea of conscience in Henry.
Yeah.
Atticus causes an idea of conscience in the people of Macon. It's about them challenging the existing views and values of Brendan was saying, and also creating doubt, the characters, but also themselves. They both have doubt in what they're doing.
If they don't, then we're not exploring things.
That's right, and that's what I suppose makes them believable in part, is because they don't wholly believe what they're saying. They've got part of them where they do consider the actions before they happen, and they know what's going to happen. They know how it's going to affect those around them, but they still go through it. And if we look at people in history, the people that make the most change to society are these people that are selfless, that are driven to over usually a point, and they make change. And I think that literature tries to recreate these people who are seen as subhuman, to talk before, in order to see how society would react. And that's important.
It's really interesting what you're saying too. I can't remember what's the name of the girl in Mockingbird who is accused of being raped by a dog. Mayella. Yeah. There's some really interesting that Hartley doesn't. In one section, I can't quite remember where it is in the text, but she talks about the life that she's lived with her family. She describes that really, really condemned kind of lifestyle that she's lived in.
It's miserable.
And she makes her the villain very vulnerable. But we don't pick up on that as English teachers much. Or English teachers, we talk about the good of Atticus. But we don't explore the fact that, this girl is as vulnerable as Tom Robinson. Whatever her actions have been, it's awful and she's done the wrong thing. But she's just from the different side of the fence, but they're both experiencing that victimisation. But we don't look at that as English teachers. We look at, hang on, this is a very, racist thing that she's done. And we don't give, again, I'm putting my little fingers up as a quotation marks, but the villain of the piece. And, she's young. She hasn't lived her life.
We got two victims at the same time, and we have to pick one.
But we talk about Tom.
Okay.
And that's really interesting.
Okay, well, we've done a lot in a short space of time, so if I summarise this, essentially what we're trying to get across is that all characters are well fleshed out in the mind of the creator, even if they don't get that much time on the page. So it's worth looking at all of them. It's worth looking at their backgrounds, it's worth looking at their journey. It's worth looking at what the author is trying to do with those characters. And it's not as simple as good and bad. There's a lot of three-dimensional shades of grey and mythometaphor. And so you can dig into any given character and find that it's worth your while, rather than just sticking with the big ones, the ones that get all the sort of attention usually. Fantastic. Right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. That's been very useful to you all.